Greetings, brothers and sisters. I'm about to do the sitting for Tuesday, May 27th. I think it's going to be a good sitting today. Fresh off a migraine. Feeling very, I've been feeling like so many other people, just odd, and the world is odd, or, maybe not odd, just, not normal. And, of course, I've had this big spiritual breakthrough recently, which is part of that, but part of it's like, like we're walking in a dream or something, whatever. Everyone has their own thing if they're going through this. And I just listened to something. This is an introduction. This is going to be, for those of you hearing this in the Journey series, it's going to be out of order. It's not going to be out of order because you're going to get these voiceovers in the order they were chronologically released. But for those of you hearing this on the Gratefullness meditation channel, there is a long voiceover I did this morning about love, unconditional love, how all love is unconditional. There's no conditional love. And I feel like it's a very important aspect of the Sahaj Marg teaching and, my own experience that I thought I'd include in the Gratefullness meditation channel in its own separate video. There's a couple of playlists, at least one of them, that's about like stuff you need to know. And so that there'll be videos like this, that are specifically about one aspect of the system, because more than anything else, Sahaj Marg is about love. And your capacity to love, and also your capacity to love God and the true love of divinity, and the love of and I don't want to talk about it like falling in love. Master Charji has said falling in love is a stupid statement because love ennobles. Love isn't you rise in love, right? You don't fall in love. Love takes you to a higher level. Love is connected with weakness, and people who love are taken advantage of by other people and things like this, right? And so, that's all true, but still, it's the higher. It's the lower that takes advantage of the higher. People doing the higher thing. But this isn't about loving something or somebody, like people think about falling in love. This is the embracing the embodiment of love that's inside of you. Is eventually becoming love, where more and more of your time is spent where you're a conduit for love, and love, you're feeling love, and where you're basking in love, and you're swimming in the ocean of bliss, which is divine love, right? So this is what the Sahaj Marg system is about. You get doses of love before it becomes more a part of your experience. Like you get the transmission, and it lights it fills your love bank and increases the amount of love that's inside of you. And then, all the other things that go with that. And eventually love becomes more and more your predominant normal state. You're not happy, you're not sad, you're feeling love, right? You're not, all these other things, you have your moods, right? People who are moody, we have our different moods. And more, you just feel love all the time. And so that is the goal of the Sahaj Marg system. The primary goal, more than anything else, your experiences and your personality and all these things are going to be specific to you. But this one condition of the, embracing the divinity within you, which is accepting and pursuing the love that is inside of you, and cultivating that love and stopping yourself from, doing things that are going to block that love or impair that love or your ability to feel that love and express that love. And so, it's the essence of Sahaj Marg. So for those of you watching this on Gratefullness meditation channel, this is a, introduction so that you understand what this video is sort of about. And I've added some things here that I don't talk about in the video, in the audio. And for everybody else on the Journey series, I have another audio now that I'm about to do about getting old. And that'll be a part of the 196th edition of the Journey series. So here is the original audio. Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. Today is Monday, May 26th, So I had kind of a weird day. I started my video today. I had a headache that I had on Saturday, was gone on Sunday, came back last night, and I started to progress and got worse today, and then it is mostly gone. Now I feel better. But I had this sort of realization. I want to talk about this. Unconditional love is the only true love. There's no conditional love. There's no such thing as conditional love. Love is always unconditional. Like people say, I want to be loved unconditionally, or I want to love unconditionally, or, there is only, love in its truest form is God. God is love. God is I'm not really a machine, but like a machine that his only product is unconditional love. Or it's unconditional love itself that produces unconditional love, right? And so, love is always unconditional. If there's conditions to love, it's something else, right? So, love is a feeling. And that's why love can be expressed to somebody, a child or a loved one or a relative or even a spouse or somebody who turns out to be a real piece of shit, right? And, maybe mistreats you. And you can't help but feel love for them. You don't like them. You don't like the person, but you can't help but feel love because love is unconditional. I mean, that's the great thing about love, and it's a great thing about God. God, you can say God loves unconditionally, but God is unconditional love. And that unconditional love exists inside each person. And so, there was a talk by, I think, Master Charji, the third master of the Sahaj Marg system, about that in Persian, there's like 40 different words or 100 different words for love. In some other language, there's another, so many words for love. But in English, there's one word. And people use the word love when they're talking about, oh, I'm getting all this love, like a person would perform, a singer would perform for so many different people, for an audience, for a crowd. And, say, oh, I feel your love. They would applaud, and you say there's love in the applause. But that's adoration, right? That's, there's different what people would think of as love. So people's definition of love is, sexual love, for example, or, the love that's, it's more than just sexual desire. There's also affection, right? But these types of things, which are, you could say they're forms of love, but love in its truest form, and the thing that should only be called love, is unconditional. It's not, there's nothing that creates a reason for you to love, right? It isn't like somebody treats you really well and you therefore love them, or somebody's really nice and you therefore love them, or they've done something for you and you therefore love them. In these old ancient, not ancient, pretty even recent, arranged marriages in India, the whole idea would be that after being around somebody for a long time, you would love them. You would just love who you were around. You love the people, your coworkers and things. People you spend a lot of time with, you inevitably love in some capacity. It's in some way unconditionally with the feeling of love, right? The feeling of love is there, and it's always there. Like, it's not something that, when love is there for something or somebody at its purest form, it's always unconditional. And, longevity and being around somebody, that's why you see these married couples that stay together, and they may not even like each other. They may argue. They might have, whatever their differences, and so even maybe get divorced, but the love is still there. Like, they still have a place in their heart for the other person. And people don't understand that, right? Because, to say I love you is, sometimes it's actual love that you feel, and sometimes it's something you feel in your heart, which is the feeling of unconditional love. But, it's unconditional love is something where, it stands the test of time, and nothing interferes with it. It just exists for some people. It's like some people you're meant to love, and some other people you're not. Like, there's people who on paper, they check all the boxes, or they seem like nice people, but you just don't have that feeling for, right? And someone else has numerous other difficult qualities, shitty qualities, unlovable qualities, unlikable qualities, and yet the love is still there. I shouldn't be an expert on this thing. Like I just don't have the personality for it, but I have a very loving heart because of, whatever I've done in the past. I feel love quite substantially. The transmission in the Sahaj Marg system is unconditional love. It's divinity. Couple things about it. Like, for example, everybody has love in their hearts. Everyone has some godly energy in their hearts. But it can get covered up or just used up, can diminish over time. And that's where people think love is lost. But oftentimes, like this, the love is worn out, or it's hidden, or it's eclipsed by grosser forms of things. People end up not having the capacity to love. Some people are so gross when they're born, as they live their lives. They've created such these things called samskaras, things that are impediments to you feeling the divinity in your heart. They never feel true love. Like it doesn't exist in them. Okay, so I stopped doing this voiceover yesterday, and today's Tuesday, May 27th. I'm going to continue it today. And so there is a kind of circuit that happens when people love each other, where love flows in a circuit, right? There's electricity, like there's this electric ball that has two metal points on it. It's like a ping pong ball that has a light inside of it. And if you touch the 2 points, it'll light up, like, because you have electricity in your system. And it's kind of the point. The metal points are pretty big on the ball, and the ball is needs a very limited amount of electricity, very small amount of electricity to generate light. But if you are in a circle, people will if you have one person touch one point and then hold hands with other people, another person, and it goes in a circle, complete circuit. You make a circuit with a circle of people. And there's two people on either side who are not touching each other, but each one is touching a point, and they're connected to the circuit. The ball will light up. So this energy flows in between people. Your energies are affected. Your energetic self, the part of you that's atomic and on an energetic level, is affected by other people's energy. And love most of all, right? So you have this internal love, and if you love somebody and they return the love, it's a circuit. It's magnified to whatever extent. But you're limited to the amount of love that's inside your system, and as your life goes on, you wear that love out, like you use up that energy, and things come in, grossness, tendencies, and negative, some scars, patterns of behavior. And so your love gets diminished. Or, people love, one person loves more, or there's more love flowing from them, this kind of thing, right? And so, inevitably, your love gets depleted. Or, when you're just worn out in life and beaten down, and, it's like your light, people's inner light fades. Their light is extinguished. You see people who are just dead inside. This is the zombification, the ghoulification of people, where they, turn into NPCs because there's no connection to their prana. It's there because they're still alive. You have to have some love to be alive. You have to have some, there's some unconditional love, God love in your system. I mean, kids are getting drained by their parents, and now, of course, the internet, things like this. And so it either gets covered up, it's there, but people can't access it because they're too gross. There's too much other, impressions, other things that are occupying their internal world, or their love gets diminished, or usually a combination of the two. And so external outputs or internal inputs from the divinity that surrounds everything. The idea of the Force in Star Wars, which is, the Force is a bad word, but because it's a power, which love isn't a power. Love is power in dormant state, right? It's, it's a forceless force in the Pranhuiti and the Sahaj Marg system. And so the Sahaj Marg system, the transmission is divine love that is made available that everybody needs. So it's something that shouldn't have to be sold. Like, like people are so unaware that they need love, and they should like crave it and find it without even knowing what it is. There should be something seeking that out inside people. That there is, like, it's like going to the refueling station, because everybody needs love on a nutritional basis. Like on a, they need it to be, they need their love banks restored, and it's available in a meditative system. I mean, it's also there when people connect to God on their own, but it's, even more so. It's like a, difference between just sort of absorbing it from the atmosphere as opposed to going to like a gas station and getting it, a big dose of it, right? It's like absorbing energy from just the, atmosphere where there's energy there, right? But it's a big difference between doing that. It's like people getting nurtured by the sun, and they don't even know it. You're physically nurtured by being out in sunlight. Of course, vitamin D people know about, but there's also mitochondrial kind of activity, mitochondrial melatonin and things, and other stuff that's happening that you're receiving from the sun. But people are, they don't like to go out to the sun. They don't want to be outside, right? They don't want to be, just not even the sun, but all of nature, all these things. There's energy coming off of all of this stuff, but people are, especially these younger people are, they stop knowing what's good for them. They are repelled by what's like nutrition. Like they want to be deprived of this kind of, when they can only eat processed foods. Like if they try to eat raw foods and, healthy foods, produce and things like this, when they look at it, they don't know what to do with it. And when they eat it, they can't eat it. But like they eat these like chicken McNuggets and these death foods, these processed foods. And that's what they think their body learns to feed on, those kind of things, even though they're not nutritious and they're toxic and they are causing all kinds of physical issues. They're causing heart disease and cancer and all these other things, but that's what their body learns is nutrition. And they're, they get so gross and warped that the things that actually make them healthy, there's like a vampire can't go out in the sunlight. They can't, absorb all these things. They get repelled by health. And so it's like a sad state of affairs, because like I shouldn't have to say to people, there's something out there where you can get your love bank recharged. People should just find it, right? Like it's just something that should be inside of you. Like you could, if you're animals can locate water, and they can locate whatever, find food and sniff around, use their instincts and their senses to find food and all the things that they need. Like they just have to go out. A wild animal wakes up and it goes and gets all kinds of mice and or grass or whatever it eats, right? And it finds places where the food is at, and they find water, and they find what they need. They just wake up and like it's just this abundant world. And people can't do that. Like people have no idea what's, like you can go out into the woods and there's all these things to eat. Like 97% of all, 96 or 7% of all, plant life. And of course some of it's yucky, like bark and things that's hard, but it's edible. Like there's very few poisonous things out there. The rest of the stuff has, nutrition in it and can be used as food. And so, people know how to forage, and, certainly some are easier to eat than others and easier to process and all these types of things. But, there's an abundance of food out there, but people have no idea what to eat and what not to eat and how to access it, and they don't learn all these things, and they become dependent, and, and they just start eating poison, and they think that's food, and they think that's nutrition, and then the rest of the things happen with it. But at the basis of all this, they want God's love in its purest form, because it nurtures you on a soul level, on a spiritual level, and then on a physical level, and everything else. Like everything is God at its center. It's fundamental building block of all of creation. Without God, there's nothing. And so that's when people say God created the universe, yes, but not as some kind of a person, right? not as some kind of a even soul, as something that's all pervading, like that's everywhere. A mindless, egoless force that is there. Not force, but energy. Even energy, it's more subtle than that, right? So unconditional love is that love is available at all times for all people, and so there's no sense of, any of these types of things where you have to be a good person, or you have to earn it, or you have to deserve it. It's just there. It's just all pervading, and so, people can't access it. That's the sad thing. With all our great accomplishments and things that we separate us from the other creatures on this planet, all the buildings, all the things we've created, all the, everything that we've done, we're disconnected from the source, and there's, like, it shouldn't be something that you'd have to sell to people. There should be some internal part of them that wants to reconnect with the source, and they just won't do it. And even people who do struggle, like they, and oftentimes it's a self-deprecating, self-hating part of people that they don't think they deserve God's love, or whatever happens, and they run away from it, right? And so you have lonely, desperate people who are, there's all this all-pervading, unconditional love in the universe, and they can't access any of it after, from their own actions and their own, they're willfully blocking it from happening. There's one thing I wanted to read, and then we'll move on to my video here. Okay, I have a handheld mic, and I always, when I go to read it, I put it on my chest, which I'll do in a second, so my voice will change. But in the Sahaj Marg system, it works where when you get these sittings, either a group sitting where there's a person, a preceptor, the master of the system sits there and is a conduit for this transmission and cleaning to happen. And in an individual sitting, you sit about 5 feet apart, across from each other. And the person transmits to you, the preceptor or the master, and cleans your internal world, and then this transmission flows through their hearts into the heart of the person receiving the sitting. And Master Charji, the third master of the system, kept a very comprehensive or meticulous diary. And he got a lot of spiritual sittings and things from Babaji, who was preparing him to be the next master of the system. And there's this one excerpt, it's one of my favorite excerpts in the literature of the system. He had this reaction, I'm going to read it to you. Babaji's giving him a sitting, so he's going to Babaji's house, and he lived in the southern part of India, in the part that would be Florida. And Babaji lived where, Minnesota or Michigan would be in America. So there was some distance there, in a different climate. But Charji would travel up there, and, he was, running the mission as the secretary of the mission. He was in charge of all the, donations and the building of ashrams and the keeping of, a list of members and these things, right? He was, he did all the organizational type of stuff. And then he would go to northern India whenever he got a chance to visit Babaji. So this is from 1977. It's an entry from the diary on April 2nd, 1977. So Babaji would die in 1983. So this is towards the end of his life. It's the third edition in his Footsteps, Volume 3. And he says, my master, master means Babaji. Master then gave us a short sitting of about 15 minutes duration, much to the unconcealed joy of the Abhyasis present, who had not expected such a blessing on this occasion. So they were traveling to Andhra Pradesh, which I'm not really sure offhand where that was. It's in the northern part of India. I felt tears coming to my eyes, I recalled, without any volition on my part. Even the merest wish to do so, all the wonderful qualities of my beloved master. The thought spontaneously arose and automatically in my mind, and I seemed to recall, as if in recollection, Master's divine love for his Abhyasis, his unfailing courtesy, his gentlemanly behavior, even with the smallest of us, his permanent cheerfulness,
his humor, etc. The thought came to my mind that perhaps this was an aspect of the cleaning too. Perhaps the impressions created in my mind by these qualities of the master, noble though they are, have also to be erased by the cleaning. This was the next thought, the reason being that otherwise the love for the master, which may be there, would be love conditioned by the existence of these very qualities in the master. A love dependent on these five qualities for its existence would be no true love. A further thought then surfaced. We human beings are all conditioned to our loves mainly because of the presence of such qualities in those whom we love. Take away those qualities, and the love too fades away. But true love must exist without beloved having necessarily to possess any of such qualities whatsoever. Then alone could the love be called true love. The thought then expanded into this next thought. Our master loves us precisely in this way. Nay, even when he would be justified in not loving us, such as an Abhyasi that has repulsive and hateful qualities, even then master is able to love the Abhyasi. I then had a glimmering of the idea of a sort of timid realization of what divine or universal love really is. Such a love pervades everything in the universe because such a love does not need any qualities or characteristics to love and therefore exist independently of all qualities in the beloved, good, bad, or indifferent. All these qualities came into my mind during this brief sitting and revealed to me the nature of the cleaning process, how deeply it has to probe, and how comprehensive it has to be in its application and functioning. So, in the Sahaj Marg teachings, there was a saying, love all whom he loves, meaning God, but also the master of the system, because a person who has relinquished their ability to do anything of their own volition, to make the wrong decisions, and will only do what God wants them to do, then has to, embrace this universal love principle, where they love everybody that comes to them, they love everyone in the world, they love everything in the world, they are conduits for this divine love, and they can't help but do that. They've given up the choice not to love, right? Which is kind of one of the fundamental choices where people would, there's this free-flowing love. You have this divine love inside of you. And it's like you put a faucet where you're being a conduit and you turn it off because people don't deserve it, right? Like somebody does something horrible, you love them, and, they do something horrible to you or something else, and, you want to turn the love off, like you don't want to give them the love anymore because of, their abhorrent qualities, right? But somebody who's reached this divine stage and, even on the path, the love flows freely and you can't help but to love, right? Because that's the divinity within you. When you're a realized soul, when the self within is being actualized, you love without conditions, right? That's unconditional love. Actually, the saying was, love the one who loves all. Which was you would love him who loves the one who loves all and love all. So the idea was, the love that people would have for Babaji, the second master of the system, and through that he loved everybody, and you would love everybody through that system. Like there would be this, again, unconditionally, because people suck. Like there's not an acknowledgement that people don't deserve it from their behavior, or they do things purposely to deny themselves love. Like that's the other part of it. They are, willfully doing things to cut themselves off from the love. They say that they love themselves. They say that they're there's this narcissistic talk, like somebody like Trump, for example. But Trump is, willfully being abhorrent in various ways. I mean, he's finding ways to get, love from his dopey supporters, but, in reality, he's doing things to be repulsive, right? Like, and he's narcissistic, and you think the guy, well, he loves himself, but he doesn't. There's some, self-hatred there. Behaving in ways because you want to push that, disconnect yourself from the divine love and then from other people. And then complain about it and feel like a victim, right? But in reality, it's self-inflicted. People have these things inside of them. There's, insecurities and,
whatever it is, like self-hatred and, whatever, the inner dialogue and things that they've heard from other people. And so they act in a way to push people away and to separate themselves from the divinity within them, and so that they don't feel the love because they don't feel like they deserve it, right? There was a woman practitioner of the system who was friends with my ex, and she seemed like a very nice person. As far as I knew, she was a really good person, but, she didn't do her practice regularly, and she didn't feel like she deserved to go get sittings or whatever because she wasn't able to meditate, because of kids and, difficult marriage or whatever it might be, right? And I was kind of surprised by this because it's like if you read the books, it doesn't matter what you're doing, or even if you quit, it's like even, you do something negative, you're supposed to come back and be welcome back because, it's not about whether you earned it or deserved it. It's about helping people redeem themselves, right? And like there's there wouldn't be a system like this in divinity itself and right now at this time in history if it was about whether you deserved it or not, because most people don't. I mean, everybody does it to some extent. It's not about deserving, it's about accepting something that's there for everybody, everything in the universe. The divine unconditional love is there for everybody, and it's needed, something you need, and something that can elevate you, that can inspire you to go to higher levels and help you evolve. Like I said at the beginning of this thing, true love is unconditional. So anyways, just to wrap this up, so there was this saying, love him who loves all and love all. And then Sharji said, love all who he loves. Because people couldn't get along. Right? Like it was kind of a joke on the first saying. Because the master of the system loved all, and you should be able to love, your brothers and sisters, no matter how abhorrent they are, because you yourself has exhibited these behaviors, right? You have had these behaviors in your own existence, your negative behaviors, like you were, like I was, like like a selfish punk when I was younger, these things, right? We all go through things. It's like when you look at your kids and you judge them, but then you remember how you were when you were their age. And you're like, yeah, I was the same way, and, you see them differently as you've evolved and you've become a better person, hopefully, as a parent, and more giving and more selfless. But then you have these selfish kids, and you're like, oh, these kids suck or whatever. But then you realize, you were what you were like at that age, right? And so there's this element. But there's just no generosity in the world anymore, and everybody expects everyone else to be better than them. They have a standard for themselves, a much lower standard than they have for everybody else. And so, that's why this selfish system and, all that it does, and the deep inner, self-hatred that pretty much everybody has for being, something that's an abomination to what they're, were created to be. And so that's why, this idea of conditional love, because people are oblivious to the fact that it's unconditional, it's there for everybody, and there should be just a world full of it. And it should be, radiating out of each person's heart for everything and everybody. But that, doesn't really exist. All right, let's get into some of the other stuff here. Okay, so still Tuesday, May 27th. I've done a lot of voiceovers today. So I had to go for a drive, and I, pick something up. And I was listening to this talk about Master Chargy. It was a really good talk. I'd been listening to it throughout the day. And, I just found out my glasses came in. So I have to, I was right there. Wish I'd checked my messages. Fuck. But anyways, I listened to the talk. I was looking for the title of it, but it segued into another talk. A Reverend Chargy talk, Master and Abhyasi hashtag 2007 July, and it's 41 minutes 44 seconds. And I talked about this talk. I listened to this talk a month ago, but I didn't recognize it. It just segued in from the other talk. And I like this talk, and I mentioned some things from it, but I didn't love it. Like it's nice hearing Chargie's voice again, and there are things in there. A lot of it I already know or I've heard before. But I started listening to this talk, and I believe it was Clark Plow asked him a question about the qualities we should have as an Abhyasi, a practitioner of the Sahaj Marg system. And, you know, um, I then he started talking about this. Some young person came in who had been practicing for 5 years and said, "What's the proof that Lology was actually anything?" It's just like, there is no proof, right? The proof is your practice, which I understood. And it was interesting hearing Chargy talk about it. It was like Chargy doing the comment videos like I would do it, but much nicer. He's much nicer than I would be, the way I am. But Chargy went on to say, it's your practice, that you don't have a relationship with the master or even believe in the system until you start doing the frickin' practice. Read the books, do the meditation, and your practice is the proof. And if you don't get any proof, then why would you do it? And, I just had heard this maybe a month or 2 months ago, maybe 3, time's, flying by. And, like I said, I thought it was a good talk, and I think I might have mentioned this thing before, but I was hearing the talk on a completely different level. I just came off a migraine, and I'm producing a lot of voiceovers today because of that. So I am in a good space, and, I see things clearer, and my meditations are much better, and I just gave a Tuesday, May 27th sitting, and, did 4 or 5 voiceovers. This is going to be the conclusion, the 109th version of the Journey series, 96th. And, I had heard these talks, the way that you guys listen to my talks, and it really popped for me this time. Like, I was hearing it on a whole different level. I was only 9 minutes in. And, this is one of the beauties of the Sahaj Marg system. When you go back and reread a book, and the book makes so much more sense the 5th time you read it opposed to the 4th time, and the 2nd time you read it opposed to the 1st time. That every time you read the books, I noticed this with the Preceptor book as I went through it, and I was cherishing it, reading it again. I always loved the book, but I mean, it meant so much more to me this time. I'm still in the process. I think I stopped because I'm like kind of, dreading. There's times where I really love a book so much, I don't want it to end. It's even if I'm going to reread it some other time, like Lord of the Rings would be an example of that, and certainly it happened over and over again with the Sahaj Marg literature. Like I just didn't want it to end. It's a little bit different, with the Sahaj Marg stuff because it's a lot of the books are talks and things. But in this case, I hadn't read the Preceptor book in like 20 years, and so rereading it for the first time after so many years, it was only going to happen once. And I might read it again in 1 year or 2 years or 5 years, depending when I have the time. I actually want to go through a lot of the literature after I'm done with the Preceptor book and reread the complete works of Ramchandra and my master, the core, my master by Charji. The 2 kind of core introductory books, and then whatever else that I can read. I mean, I'd like to reread all this stuff eventually. I don't have the time, and I haven't gotten into the habit of doing it. But, it's one of the proofs, like this kid was asking about proof. And if you can't answer that question yourself through the practice, and I'm hoping you guys have enough with you guys doing the gratefulness meditation. I mean, I can't provide what I had, but again, it's a different time too. It's easier to experience. But that's one of the barometers where you come back and you hear something again and you can tell that you've matured and you've developed and your consciousness has shifted. And you're like, oh, I didn't get this the first time I read it. There was more for me to understand. Like I'm reading on a whole different level. And that's the beauty of the Sahaj Marg system. Because you might read a book 100 times and have that experience where each time you're like, oh my God, I understand this so much more now. I get it. Like I thought I got it last time and I got it to my level. But I'm understanding it at a totally deeper level. And that's some of the beauty in the literature and the teachings and all of it, the energy. And, that's the proof that people should have because, if they do their practice, that should be the end result. It should be something where you don't need any convincing because you're the experiment yourself, right? You're experimenting with the system and the results are inside of you. You're not looking for external proof because you've experienced the proof yourself. And the master's convinced you that this is this real deal. And then you could go forth with faith and and understanding, and then it'll keep on proving it to you. Like it's not like a one-off. It keeps on proving it to you. You know, you can practice other religions and things, and you'll get proof. You'll get results. God will be there if you pray to God. Whatever you use to connect to God. There's other legitimate practices. It's just a matter of which one delivers. I mean, those practices they don't have the same goal, which is the emergence back into the source that Sahaj Marg has. Like they talk about heaven in Christianity and nirvana or whatever in Buddhism or whatever these things are. Those aren't the same things, right? Heaven isn't the same thing as merging into the source, right? Where heaven, you're going to someplace, where merging back into the source, you're becoming the best version of yourself. And so you have sort of a unique goal here in Sahaj Marg. The other thing that Charji said was, I just want to end with this, that he said, I'm going to put this in, I have 3 voiceovers I'm going to put together into a video probably tomorrow on the Gratefullness meditation channel about love, and I was just talking about the death stuff. And so I'll put that there just as part of the, some essential videos to watch, because these are kind of epic things. Charji was talking about liberation, and he was like, I go to places and I say, who wants to be liberated? And not one person raises their hand. Like, there's 2 goals. One is the liberation from all future rebirths here on planet Earth. And the second one is Layavasta, which is mergence with God, which is a lot harder. But people don't even want liberation because they're like, well, I don't want to die now. Even if they weren't sure what he meant, he don't raise their hands because they're like, well, I need 5 more years. Like to give this example, I got 5 more years. I got to get my kids married off, and I have these things to settle. Actually, maybe 10 more years. So. And so, very few people are willing to be liberated right now. Just the idea of liberation. And so, how are they going to reach Layavasta if they don't want the much easier goal? And so, really what they want is peace or connection or feeling God's love or whatever it might be. And maybe they think, oh, when I'm dead, when I die, then I'll get it because I won't care about. But if they're still attached so much to human life, to material life, they're not going to want it when they're dead either, right? They're going to die wanting to come back. So that was the other talk, which was kind of interesting on a lot of levels. He was talking about how, in the ancient times, the guru would come and whisper some great truth to the person. And the person, if they were thinking something else, or they're distracted, or they didn't absorb it, they just wouldn't get it. And the guru would say, oh, that was it. You had your chance. That was your one moment, right? And you didn't rise up to it. And that was you worked all your way to do that. And you got distracted. You didn't focus in. You didn't get it. You didn't tune into what I just said, and all and everything that went with it, right? And so, like, he was talking about this being the case more often than not, which is sadly the experience we have at planet Earth, right? People don't want what's really their soul wants. Their soul wants liberation and Layavasta, but people don't want it. Anyways, let me wrap this one up here. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paramount, definitely according to the Apocalaughs. And the Ascension, everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.